name is Andrew Martinsig, and today I'll be talking about what problems arise from the excessive use of social media and video games, particularly in teens. These topics have become more and more important in recent years as their scale has increased exponentially. This graph here shows the exponential growth. Some notable areas are the 21% increase from 2016 to 2017 and the 9% increase from 2018 to 2019 that leads to over 3.4 billion users of social media this year. Social media is large, but so are video games, and there are nearly 2.5 billion gamers in the world today, and that number will increase by 2021 to about 2.725, as expected here. Already, with the amount of users of social media and video games, almost everyone in the world is affected in some way by social media. This could be by personal use, as there are so many users, or just a friend or family member that is using them. Edward Kessler in the stimulus material notes this increase in social media use by stating that social media sites have grown exponentially in the last 5 years. And then Jenny McGonigal brings a positive light to gaming that says gamers are, quote, inspired to collaborate and to cooperate, showing that video games can be very good if they are used correctly. Knowing that social media and video games have become so large and influential in our lives today led me to my research question, which is what problems result in teenagers from the excessive use of social media and video games? And what can we do to solve those problems? From even a quick Google search, it is clear that some problems are very prevalent with social media and video games, especially in teens. Katie Hurley, an adolescent psychotherapist, states that a problem with social media is that too much time spent scrolling through social media can result in symptoms of anxiety and or depression. As an adolescent psychotherapist, Katie gives us the scientific perspective of the negative effects of social media. Also through a scientific lens, Dr. Karine Tawagi states that some healthcare professionals believe that depression or anxiety could be linked to video game addiction, with video game addiction often being characterized as excessive use of video games. Though there is a large problem and danger posed by video game and social media use, it seems that very few people know or care about it. As is shown in the graphs from the Pew Research Center, there's a large number of parents who use social media. And with that large number of parents that use social media, comes with it a bunch of teens and their children that are also influenced to use social media. And those teens have an overwhelmingly positive view of social media, with 81% of U.S. teens feeling that they are more connected with their friends, with only 45% of U.S. teens seeing the negative impact of increased drama and other negative aspects. So this shows that teens and their parents aren't really seeing a problem from social media use. This trend continues with video games, where the majority of parents do not believe that there is anything wrong with social media affecting their kids. Russell Heimlich states that most parents of gamers, 62%, do not believe that video games have an effect on their children. Since the majority of parents do not believe that there is a problem with video games, they are not going to do anything about it. Furthermore, according to Andrew Perrin, the assistant professor of sociology at the University of North Carolina, the majority of children do not believe that they are playing too much video games, with only 1/4 of people, 26%, believing that they spend too much time. So the majority of parents and children are not finding a problem with this. Since it is the excessive use of social media and video games that is the cause of anxiety and depression in teens, the solution would have to be to cut it down. The best way for a teen to do that would be by influencing their parents, who are the only ones that can really make a decision like that for their children. Therefore, my first solution is parents limiting screen time for their children. Parents can do this by gradually decreasing the amount of screen time that their children have. The target time that they should eventually reach is, according to Dr. Tim Elmore, about a 60 to 90 limit per day for social media. This solution also encompasses video games because, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, stated by Becky Oskin, the recommended time for electronics, particularly video games, is 1 to 2 hours a day. The largest limitation with this solution is that it is completely up to the parents to decide whether or not they are willing to enforce this rule. Since the effects may change from family to family, it is difficult to see how effective it would be on a large scale. The second major limitation with this is that teens are on social media and video games because they want to. And since they want to, they will probably continue to want to. So they will likely go against their parents' wishes in wanting less screen time. But parents have an advantage here because of the multitude of third-party apps that can control screen time for a multitude of devices. Also, there are in-app settings that can be adjusted for this, such as the screen time settings in iOS devices. Finally, the last major limitation with this solution is actually getting parents to do it. While the vast majority of parents want the best for their kids, so they will likely agree with these terms because they think it would be positive, many of them may not know that they should actually be doing this. Thusly, the solution might require an ad campaign or other forms of communication to tell the parents that this is something that they may want to consider doing. Solution 2 is educating the public through PSAs, public service announcements, and ad campaigns. This solution is important because the majority of people, as was shown earlier in the presentation, do not realize that there are negative effects coming from social media and video games. And when people are conscious of those impacts, they are more likely to make changes to monitor and reduce their screen time habits. Furthermore, Robert Thompson, who is the professor of popular culture at Syracuse University, states that a PSA campaign can be very good at making people do stuff that doesn't require much sacrifice. And that sacrifice for this problem is only a few minutes here or there, making it an easy sacrifice that would be likely for people to follow. Whether that be the teen themselves or someone, a friend or family member that might see the symptoms and relate it back to this once they see the ads. The most important implication of this solution is that it will reduce the negative impacts caused by excessive screen time. Going hand in hand with the previous implication, the second implication is that it will make social media and video games positive again. Some positive impacts that were previously overshadowed by the negatives include the feeling of community that social media and video games bring, as well as the increased connection that people have through using these online mediums. The major limitations of the solution are that people have to listen, and that the relatively new arrival of social media and video games has left the scientific community lacking in long-term studies. With limited long-term information, many users may just simply decide to dissuade all of this because they do not believe that it is actually a problem, since they don't really know the long-term effects. In conclusion, the best solution to excessive social media and video game use in teens is the first solution, for parents to reduce screen time for their children. This solution is the best because it leaves the user less of a choice in this matter, because the users themselves will want to continue using social media as they were before. But when the parents do it, that's a final, and they can use devices or apps such as off time or the in-game in-app settings that can adjust screen time. Thank you.
Okay, Andy, so I have a couple questions for you. One question is, did you, while you were doing your research, did you find anything that was interesting but you couldn't really use it in your presentation, and what was that?
Yes.
And why couldn't you use it?
Something that I really wanted to use but I couldn't use was more examples of positive effects of video games and social media, just because I wanted to prove that while there are the negatives, once it's pulled back to the certain amount of time and people are making the changes that they need to, that there are positives, but I just felt like there wasn't enough time for me to go into that in enough detail, and since I couldn't go into enough detail, it would have felt half-hearted, and I don't think it would have added to the presentation.
Okay, and then if you were to continue doing research in this area, what would be the next thing that you would look at? Or what else would you look at?
The thing that most fascinated me by this was the use of ad campaigns and public service announcements, as that was the primary basis of my second solution. I wanted to understand actually how that would go through. Like, I would like to research further how or who would be having those PSAs and ads go out, whether it would be the government or another nonprofit organization. I wanted to know who would be more likely to do that, but once more, I did not think that I had enough time to fit that into my presentation.
Okay, great, thank you.